Welcome to Stoked with Megan McPhail, the podcast that helps you get super effing jazzed about your work, life, and bank account. I'm your host, Megan McPhail, a former burnt-out emergency veterinarian that quit my hard-earned career to become a seven-figure business coach, entrepreneur, and elopement photographer. Now I'm living a life I absolutely love, full of travel, adventure, and financial abundance, and I am hell-bent on inspiring others to do the same. Are you ready to say goodbye to the 9-to-5 grind and start going after some big, bold dreams? Then let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, it's your host, Megan McPhail.
And your co-host, Todd Reedy.
And today's episode is all about building a personal brand. So last episode, we talked about the importance of niching down and serving like a small target market and being able to stand out in the crowd because of that and kind of serve a very specific person. And so now I kind of want to build on that because I want to talk about creating your brand. And a personal brand is more than just logos and colors and fonts and stuff like that. Because I see all the time entrepreneurs are like, oh, I'm going to rebrand or whatever. And normally that just involves your website, how it looks and what colors and fonts and stuff and like a logo. But a brand is so much more than that. It's really your personality and kind of communicating your personality. And we're really lucky that we just get to showcase our own personality, essentially. Because if you think about like a corporate brand or like Pepsi or something, or like, I don't know, some big company that has like lots of products or something, and it's not really about a specific person, like they have to basically fabricate a personality. They got to fabricate some kind of party that they're inviting you to. And that's a lot harder than what we have to do, which is really just getting comfortable with expressing ourselves and showing off our personality. And I mean, I love logos and fonts and colors and website design as much as the next person, but that should just be a representative of your personality. So I'm going to kind of talk about this, especially since at this point I've really built two brands. I've built Hazel and Lace, and then my just like coaching, which is just myself. And I'm going to go into more of what a brand really means.
Yeah, and this isn't really like super unique to just entrepreneurs, like thinking about a normal person or like someone going out into the dating pool or like a person at a corporate job. You have a personal brand. So like say you're getting out into the dating world and you have your story and you have kind of the things that you enjoy, you like, and you have to like sell that to potential dates, right? Or in a corporate world, like you have your reputation of being a good worker, the guy who shows up early or the guy who shows up late, whatever that may be. Like you carry that kind of persona or that brand even as like an individual. So I don't think it's a foreign thing. Like initially when I first kind of heard of this concept of like the personal brand, I was like, who cares? Like just me. But I think especially as we like get into like our own entrepreneurial journey and for solopreneurs, like that personality and that very like specific thing that defines you, I think is what will attract the right type of people that you want to work with.
Yeah, that's such a good segue because that's really what this is all about, is like building this personal brand, showing off your personality and like understanding how to communicate your personality and your values and your story and your like how to build trust and connect with people. That's the whole purpose of it, is to attract the right people that you want to work with that also equally want to work with you, so that you are working with people that make your life easy and enjoyable and that you are really kind of on the same wavelength with your people and can even develop friendships, So a personal brand is not just the visuals. It's not just the logos and stuff, although that's very fun to develop all those things. I had a blast developing it for Megan McPhail, and I think it represents me so well. But it's also like, it's your unique identity, it's your reputation, and it's your personality, and it's the way people are going to perceive you and associate with you. It's going to be based on your values, your actions, your expertise, and the way you kind of present that to the world. So it's strategic, but it's also really just like figuring out who you are in the space and how to communicate that with others. So, in the context of entrepreneurship, building this personal brand is how you're going to stand out and distinguish yourself from others so that people can either find you and say, oh, this person, I do not vibe with them. Or, yes, I do vibe with them and I definitely want to give them all my money. So yeah, the elements of your personal brand are going to be your core values, which I've spoken about a bunch kind of over the course of this year with this podcast. But your core values have to be the thing that is always the foundation of everything that you do. You don't want to ever go against your core values, because if you do, life just feels not right. Like, I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, icky and uncomfortable.
Yeah. You're like, every day you're just like, something is just not right with what I'm doing. Whereas if you are really living with this foundation of your core values as like the most important thing in your business, or one of the most important things, and everything feels good and aligned and right. And like, it just like, I don't feel icky.
Well, and both of us coming from like more of a professional setting in like engineering and the vet world, I don't even know how it kind of develops, but like in those type of scenarios, and probably a lot of corporate scenarios, like we have to be kind of robots and like very professional at all times and very articulate and like just kind of boring. So like that was definitely a role that I like embraced as an engineer, and then transitioning away from that into entrepreneurship and like into kind of this photo video space where people are hiring us as people, not like the brand or like a big corporate thing. Like we get to be ourselves, and like that still, I think it's hard to shake, because I still find myself like writing emails and like wanting to use very like formal language, but I don't think that's definitely not how I speak if I were to like have a conversation with someone. Like I take my job seriously and I'm professional, but being very robotic in like my language and like my sentence structure just is boring, and it's corporate, and it's not part of who I am and the brand or like the person that I want to be like showcasing to my clients.
You want the people who hire you to be like, oh yeah, that's so Todd, like before they even work with you, and like they're binging your Instagram or like looking at your website or something like that, and like they get your vibe. It's all about the vibes, which it's like how I even explain that, I don't really know, but you want to be able to show up and like meet them, or meet on a Zoom, or meet in real life, and then be like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. This is who he is. He's his true authentic self. So really like the first part of building your brand is all about self-reflection, understanding who you are, understanding your core values, and it doesn't start with a logo. Even though that's where people want to jump to right away, they want to jump to their logo. So core values, first and foremost, really trying to understand who you are and realizing that you aren't just some boring person. Your personality is unique, and you're out here to like uniquely serve people who vibe with you. And step 2, which was kind of what we were talking about in the last episode about identifying your niche, you also need to like identify who those people are within that niche and like how you're going to serve them. Because the next step is really about crafting a story and a message for those people, which telling your story is a huge part of building a personal brand. Like storytelling is how we've passed down information for thousands of years. Hearing a story about something really helps people understand it more than just like throwing facts at them. So having your origin story, or your like phoenix rising from the ashes kind of story, that needs to be part of it. Being a veterinarian and hating it and quitting it is like the crux of my story, right? And the fact that I was a great doctor, but it burnt me the F out, and now I'm off doing this totally wacky, unrelated thing and loving it and making way more money and working way less. That's a huge part of my brand story, is that kind of journey that I went through, and whether people are veterinarians or not, they can certainly relate with that in some way. And just like your story, you have a PhD and you quit that to pursue something else. And that's crazy. And nobody does that. But we did. And that's why we're out here inspiring others to do the same.
Yeah, because before meeting Megan, like that wasn't even close to being on my radar. So like hearing it in like real life as like a real person, like experiencing that, showed me it was okay and like kind of gave me that permission.
Yeah. And so, having your brand basically reflect your values and talk directly to this target market within this niche that you're working in, and have this like powerful story and message, and like people understanding where you're coming from. Not only all those things, but also having this be consistent across the board, because building trust with people a lot of times is about saying the same thing 100 times and not saying 100 different things once. It's really about being consistent and almost helping people put you into like a little box, Like, we have a bunch of stuff on our website about we love our dogs. Our core values involve the fact that science is real and reproductive rights are human rights and Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. Like, we have all that kind of stuff on our website, because not only do we want to attract the right people, we want to kind of like repel the people who don't believe in the things that we believe in, or don't vibe with that, or don't appreciate that. And that's okay. They can find somebody else. But yeah, we want to have our stories as a big part of our brand. We want to be consistent with that and kind of like almost redundant with it, so that people really can just be like, oh yeah, Megan, she's the girl with 3 dogs, and she, used to be a veterinarian. Now she's an elopement photographer and business coach. They travel all over the country in their RV, like you want to be able to almost like give people things where they can kind of put you in this box of who you are, so that they can identify really quickly whether or not you're the person for them.
Yeah, and in the creative space, like I think we do get the benefit of being able to showcase like our real personality, whether that's bubbly or funny or conservative or however that is. But don't get us wrong, like I want my surgeon to be dead serious about his job, and I want my airplane pilot to be like not a jokester. Like I just want him to fly the plane. So like there's a lot of, I think, jobs or like careers that like people have to be that personality and that brand. But in the entrepreneurial space where we're like serving clients like on a more one-to-one basis, showing our personality is so, so important.
It builds trust, and it helps people realize, you're the person that they want to work with. And it sets you apart from your competition. And that's really a huge part, because there's like probably hundreds of Colorado elopement photographers, right? That are all experts in Colorado. So what's the next thing that people are going to judge you on? And it's going to be like your personality and whether they can see themselves working with you all day. And that goes for a lot of entrepreneurs. And I would argue that I think that even some of these more traditional jobs could benefit from some personal branding. And we're seeing that now with like TikTok and stuff like that, where like veterinarians are like showing their real personalities on TikTok. And so are doctors. I follow a ton of doctors that are freaking hilarious in how they teach people things and talk about things. And it's like, it's humanizing people. I would love to show up to like an animal hospital with our dogs and have it be decorated in some funky way instead of a sterile office. The emergency vet we just went to, because our dog unfortunately got hit by a car, but she's okay. I mean, they had cool Southwestern vibes and art everywhere. It like was such a happy place compared to the ER I used to work at, where it was like these really drab colors that just immediately walking in the building, I just felt like shit just because of like the colors. Because, and this is a good segue into the visual identity of your brands. People think branding is just all about, like I've said this already 5 times, but they think it's all about the logo and the colors and the fonts. And it is, because you do, again, want people to be able to pick up on your values and your personality very quickly in like a millisecond of going to your website. They can tell a lot about you just by the colors and the fonts and your logo. And like, what do you want to portray to people? And let's not start with the logos. Let's do the self-reflection and figuring out who your target market is and your story and your message and like how you're going to build trust and authenticity and authority and all those things. And then create a visual identity based on that stuff that represents all of that. That's really the key. And I mean, I don't know all the things about color theory, but there's definitely colors that portray happiness. There's colors that portray sadness. There's colors that give off energy. There's colors that are calming. So you can utilize all that to your benefit when you are planning the visual part of your brand. But yeah, I would rather have places have like better branding that have traditionally just been very like sterile kind of places. I've thought about like if I ever did open up an animal hospital, which I'm not, because actually that sounds awful. But I thought I could stand out from the competition by the way I marketed myself and the way I decorated. I would want to do everything completely different than the way animal hospitals have been. I think that would be huge to building a successful business because it would be unlike anything that people have ever gone to. When you think about all you entrepreneurs out there and want to be entrepreneurs, when you're thinking about this business you're building and how you want people to connect with it, your brand and your story is a huge part of that. And I don't want anybody to be afraid to show off their personality and their values and who they are and what they stand for and their story, because you are going to attract the people where they're like, wow, that's super cool, and push away the people who don't think that's cool. So like the moms out there, talk about your kids, and how you built a business with, your toddlers running around or something. If you love freaking cats and have like 15 of them, you should be showcasing that. If you have some really weird aesthetic tastes, do that. If you're like into like goth fairy tale stuff, show that off. Make sure that you are representing yourself so that you can attract the people that you're going to vibe with and just have so much fun with.
It's much more natural, right, to be yourself than to continually be something else that you want your brand to be. Just like be yourself and let your brand be a reflection of that.
Yeah. And don't think that you're boring, because you're not. That's another thing I hear all the time. But I'm boring. None of us are boring. We are all super, super different. And if you just stay at home and drink tea and like water all your plant babies, there's other people out there doing the same thing. And they love that life and they want somebody else who loves that life, So like anything that you are into, there are other people that want to hear about it and see all the things about it so that they can connect with you on a less superficial level and work with somebody who they feel like I can talk to them about my plant babies, or I can talk to them about my dogs, or I also have a Toyota truck. Let's talk about that. Like, you want to be able to connect with people. And if you just keep all those things inside and you don't do the self-reflection and you're afraid to show off yourself, you're going to miss out on all the cool people that you could work with that really can like just make life awesome. Because you should be working with people that value you, appreciate you, and chose you because of your quirky personality and values and aesthetics. And not because you, I don't know, charged less than so-and-so, right? So I hope you enjoyed this podcast and I hope it inspired you, and I can't wait to share more businessy stuff with you next time. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Stoked with Megan McPhail. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend. If you're looking for more inspiring content, check us out on Instagram at Stoked with Megan McPhail. And to learn more about my business coaching and how I can personally help you quit your 9-to-5, visit my website at meganmcphail.com. I hope this leaves you feeling stoked. See you next week.